The way people treat you is often a reflection of the standards you've communicated to them, consciously or unconsciously. And that communication doesn't always happen through words. It happens through patterns, through your reactions, and through what you allow to continue. One of the biggest misconceptions we carry is that if someone disrespects us, it's because they don't value us. But often, the truth is a little more uncomfortable. They don't respect us because we haven't made it clear how we expect to be treated. Respect starts with you, not with how loud you demand it, but with how clearly you live it. When you make excuses for disrespect, maybe they didn't mean it. Maybe I'm being too sensitive. Maybe I should just let it go. You're not just brushing it off, you're teaching. You're showing that your discomfort isn't important enough to be acknowledged. And when people realize there are no real consequences to overstepping your boundaries, they begin to treat your space, time, and energy as negotiable. Think about this. Every time someone crosses a line and you say nothing, you send a message that the line doesn't really matter. And over time, those lines disappear entirely. What once felt like a red flag now looks like a slightly inconvenient shade of pink. You normalize what should have been stopped early. You begin to live in a reality where your needs are constantly overlooked. Not because people are cruel, but because you've conditioned them to believe there's no cost to doing so. Setting boundaries isn't about being confrontational. It's not about burning bridges or issuing ultimatums. It's about calmly, consistently expressing what you need and then aligning your actions with that expression. If someone speaks to you in a disrespectful tone, you don't have to attack them back. You just have to say, "I don't appreciate that," and then disengage. If someone repeatedly cancels plans or flakes out on commitments, you don't need to argue. You just need to stop rearranging your schedule for them. When you respect yourself, when you truly value your own time, peace, and presence, your standards become self-sustaining. They don't require constant defense because your behavior reinforces them. And the right people will rise to meet them without you having to chase or convince them. Ultimately, respect doesn't come from demanding attention or approval from others. It comes from modeling what is and isn't acceptable through the way you live. And once you do that, once you draw that line not with words but with action, people will learn, and those who don't, they disqualify themselves, not from your anger, but from your access. One of the greatest powers you will ever develop is the ability to stay calm when everything in you wants to explode. The people who disrespect you, whether subtly or blatantly, often rely on your emotional response to maintain their position. The moment you react out of frustration, anger, or sadness, they can point to your behavior and say, "See, you're the one overreacting." Suddenly, the focus shifts from their lack of respect to your intensity. This is the trap. When someone disrespects you, your instinct might be to defend yourself loudly, to demand an apology, or to make them understand just how much they've hurt or disrespected you. But in doing that, you often hand over your emotional control. And the problem with giving someone the power is that they now decide how you feel, how much peace you carry, how centered you are, how much dignity you maintain in a moment that's designed to provoke you. The real power lies in emotional neutrality. This doesn't mean you feel nothing. It means you don't allow your emotions to dictate your next move. It's the ability to pause, breathe, and respond with intention rather than impulse. Because when you respond instead of react, you're in the driver's seat. You control the energy in the room. You control the direction of the conversation. And more importantly, you protect your peace. Emotional neutrality isn't passivity, it's presence. It's knowing that your reaction is a choice, not an obligation. You can choose not to give someone the satisfaction of seeing you rattle. You can choose to say, "That didn't sit well with me," instead of raising your voice. You can walk away from a conversation without slamming doors, because you understand your silence can speak volumes. People who repeatedly disrespect others often seek emotional chaos. They thrive on the drama. It gives them a sense of control. But when you remove the drama, when you respond calmly and assertively, they have nothing to feed off. You starve the dynamic of the very thing that keeps it alive, emotional volatility. So instead of thinking, "How do I make them respect me?" try asking, "How do I stay in control of myself regardless of what they do?" Because true self-respect isn't proven in big moments, It's proven in how you handle yourself in small ones, in the way you stay grounded when someone tries to shake you, in the way you calmly remove yourself when someone tries to belittle you. The next time someone disrespects you, don't give them your anger. Give them your absence. Don't meet their chaos with chaos. Meet it with calm. That's where your power lives. That's how you take back control. There's a point in every person's life when they have to realize this simple truth. Not everyone is meant to stay. Not everyone will evolve. And not everyone will suddenly treat you better just because you want them to. Hoping someone will change is one thing. But allowing repeated disrespect while you continue to give them access to your energy, your time, and your emotional availability, that's something else entirely. You don't teach someone how to value you by explaining over and over again what they did wrong. You teach them by deciding who gets to stay in your space. We've been conditioned to believe that if someone disrespects us, the right move is to talk it out, to keep trying to be the bigger person again and again. And while communication is essential, there comes a point when talking becomes a form of begging. You don't need to explain your worth to someone who is already choosing to ignore it. You don't need to keep reopening doors to people who've already shown they'll walk in with muddy feet. Sometimes the best way to handle disrespect is not through confrontation, but through subtraction. Stop granting access to people who only show up when it's convenient for them. Stop sharing your energy with those who use your kindness as an invitation to cross your boundaries. Protecting your peace doesn't require an announcement. It requires action. Quiet, consistent action. This doesn't mean you have to cut people off dramatically or in anger. It means you can pull back in a way that prioritizes your self-respect. Maybe that means not responding to a text right away. Maybe that means declining the invite. Maybe it means no longer sharing the intimate details of your life with someone who uses them carelessly. The point is, you reclaim your power when you control who gets proximity to you. People often confuse emotional access with connection. Just because someone has been in your life for a long time doesn't mean they've earned the right to stay close. Longevity isn't loyalty, and history isn't always alignment. The more you grow, the more selective you'll need to become with your presence, not out of arrogance, but out of necessity. So if someone continues to disrespect you even after you've made your boundaries clear, it's time to stop making space for them. You don't punish them. You simply stop overextending yourself. Let them feel the distance. Let them notice the absence of your energy. Let them realize that being close to you is a privilege, not a given. Your energy is a currency. Spend it where there's return. And when someone shows you they won't meet your standard of respect, don't argue. Just move differently. That quiet shift will say more than any confrontation ever could. People often confuse emotional detachment with being cold, distant, or heartless. But true detachment is none of those things. It's not about shutting down your feelings. It's about protecting your peace. It's about refusing to let someone else's lack of respect dictate how much of yourself you continue to give. And in many situations, walking away doesn't mean you're weak or insensitive. It means you've finally decided that your self-worth is not up for negotiation. When someone repeatedly disrespects you, it becomes less about what they're doing and more about what you're allowing. Every time you let it slide, every time you show up the same way for someone who treats you carelessly, you're reinforcing their belief that they can keep doing it without consequence. And sometimes, the most powerful way to challenge that belief isn't through confrontation. It's through removal. There is strength in distance. When you detach, you give yourself the space to see things clearly. You're no longer tangled in their excuses, no longer emotionally invested in fixing what they have no intention of changing. You're able to breathe again. You start hearing your own voice above theirs. And with that clarity comes power. The power to choose yourself. Detachment doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop overgiving. You stop explaining. You stop holding out hope that if you just try a little harder, they'll wake up and realize your worth. Because the truth is, people who truly respect you don't need to be convinced. They feel your value in your presence, in your consistency, in the way you show up with love and integrity. And if they can't return that with the same level of regard, they haven't earned the right to stay close. Walking away is not about proving a point. It's about preserving your soul. You don't have to shout, block, or slam the door unless that's what's needed. Sometimes the most profound statement you can make is to quietly exit the room. Not because you're bitter, but because you're done shrinking yourself for people who refuse to grow. And here's what often happens. When you walk away, not in anger, but in calm certainty, you disrupt the pattern. People who were once dismissive suddenly start to notice the silence. They begin to realize that access to you was never guaranteed, and some might come back, changed by the absence, others won't. And either outcome is a win, because detachment helped you sort who belongs in your life from who was merely filling space. You're not heartless for leaving someone behind. You're wise for choosing to love yourself more than you feared losing them. Detachment is not cruelty, it's clarity. And sometimes that's exactly what sets you free. When someone disrespects you, your first instinct might be to defend yourself, maybe even over-explain why their behavior was unacceptable. You might think that if you just help them understand your feelings, they'll change. But the truth is, people rarely change because of what you tell them. They change because of what they experience. If you keep explaining, pleading, or repeating your boundaries while continuing to engage the same way, your words begin to lose weight. Respect isn't taught through repetition. It's reinforced through action. That's why one of the most powerful things you can do is stop trying to convince people to treat you right. Instead, begin showing them what happens when they don't. This doesn't mean being manipulative. It means mirroring their behavior in a way that reflects the reality of how their actions affect your connection. If someone constantly makes sarcastic jokes at your expense, you don't need to match their tone or argue. You simply create distance. You disengage emotionally. You stop giving them your best energy. That silence, your withdrawal of warmth, becomes the mirror. The key is to stop chasing understanding from people who are committed to misunderstanding you, because often they do understand. They just don't care enough to change. Until they feel the consequence of your absence. When you hold up a mirror instead of starting another debate, you stop fighting for validation and start reclaiming your power. It becomes clear that respect is the price of admission to your space. And when they realize the connection doesn't feel the same anymore, when your energy feels different, your availability shifts, your enthusiasm fades, they're forced to reflect. Sometimes the mirror you hold is your silence. Sometimes it's your lowered engagement. Sometimes it's the way you no longer prioritize them the way you used to. And while they may not like it, it's the only language some people understand, change in behavior. This isn't about punishing anyone. It's about protecting yourself. You are allowed to let people experience the result of their own choices. If they want to be close to you again, they'll have to rise to your standard. And if they don't, then the mirror did its job. It revealed the truth. You don't have to hate them. You don't have to make a dramatic exit. But you do have to be consistent. Because when you shift your energy to match their respect level, something powerful happens. You stop begging to be seen, and instead you become the kind of person who commands respect, quietly, clearly, and without compromise. Respect doesn't always come from confrontation. Sometimes it comes from elevation. When someone disrespects you, your first thought might be to fix the dynamic, to address the issue, to make them see how they're treating you unfairly. But there's a different kind of response that speaks even louder than words: growth. When you shift your focus away from correcting others and instead invest deeply in evolving yourself mentally, emotionally, and even physically, you send a message that cannot be ignored. People pay attention when your energy changes. When you stop reacting and start rising, you communicate something powerful without saying a word. You're not stuck. And you're not waiting for anyone to change in order for you to thrive. The moment you prioritize your growth over their approval, you break free from the cycle of needing validation from those who don't respect you. You stop asking for their recognition, and you start creating a life that reflects your self-worth. This kind of evolution looks like choosing silence over arguments. It looks like pouring your energy into new goals instead of trying to repair old wounds. It means showing up for yourself, at the gym, at your job, in your relationships, with a standard that reflects how highly you now regard yourself. And it doesn't go unnoticed. The very people who once overlooked you will begin to feel your shift. Not because you're trying to prove anything, but because you've become someone who no longer tolerates the version of life where their disrespect was acceptable. You don't have to shrink to get love. You don't have to dim your light to make someone comfortable. And when someone consistently disrespects you, the best revenge is never cruelty. It's success, it's inner peace. It's becoming so fulfilled and grounded that their behavior no longer touches you. Because at that point, they're not dealing with the old version of you, the one who would explain, justify, or tolerate. They're facing the evolved version, who no longer has time for disrespect. When you evolve, you change the dynamic. Suddenly, you're not just responding to what they do, you're outgrowing it. And that's uncomfortable for people who benefited from the old you. Some may criticize your shift. Others may try to pull you back down. But let that be a sign you're moving in the right direction. Because the people who truly respect you will celebrate your growth, not resent it. The greatest statement you can make in the face of disrespect is to become so focused on your own path that their behavior becomes background noise. You rise, you heal, you build. And slowly, the disrespect that once felt so loud starts to fade. Not because they changed, but because you did. And that's the most powerful kind of change there is. There's a profound difference between forgiving someone and allowing them back into your life. Forgiveness is something you do for yourself to release the resentment, to let go of the poison that lives inside when you hold on to anger. But reconciliation? That's something different. That's a privilege. And not everyone who disrespects you deserves to be welcomed back just because you've chosen to heal. We live in a world that praises forgiveness as a virtue. And rightfully so. But it often skips over an important truth. Forgiveness doesn't require reconnection. You can forgive someone in your heart and still recognize that they're not safe, not respectful, not ready to be in your life in a healthy way. That's not bitterness. That's discernment. People often return after causing hurt, not necessarily because they've changed, but because they're uncomfortable with the consequences of your distance. They miss your energy, your support, your presence. But missing you isn't the same as respecting you. A person can miss you while still not having learned a thing about how to treat you. This is where your growth is tested, not just in your ability to forgive, but in your willingness to uphold your standards after the apology. Anyone can say, "I'm sorry." Anyone can make promises, but changed behavior, that's rare. And if someone wants a place in your life again, it's not your job to make that easy. It's their responsibility to show that they've done the work. When someone disrespects you and you forgive them, you create emotional closure. But if you let them back in without accountability, you invite repetition. People will always test the limits of what they're allowed to get away with. It's not always malicious. Sometimes it's unconscious. But that's why your boundaries must be rooted in action, not emotion. You can love someone deeply and still choose to love them from a distance. Think of it this way. Your peace is a gate and your boundaries are the locks. Forgiveness may open the gate, but trust. That's earned brick by brick, through consistent and respectful behavior over time. If someone truly values you, they'll be patient enough to rebuild. If they aren't, they'll reveal that they were only interested in comfort, not connection. So don't confuse your healing with their right to re-enter. You're allowed to close the chapter without inviting the same chaos back into the story. You're allowed to say, "I forgive you, but I've changed." And this version of me requires more, because the goal isn't just to heal from disrespect. It's to never again accept it under the illusion of love, apology, or history. And that's what real growth looks like. Not just letting go of pain, but also letting go of people who've shown they can't handle your value. One of the most liberating realizations in life is this: not everyone has to like you, and you don't need to win everyone over. When someone disrespects you, the first impulse can often be to wonder, what did I do wrong? How can I fix this? We make their bad behavior about us. We try to work harder to be accepted, to be understood, to be liked, when in reality, their disrespect is a reflection of them, not a reflection of your worth. It's a dangerous habit to tie your self-worth to someone else's opinion, because the moment they withhold approval or treat you with disregard, you start shrinking, you doubt yourself, you overextend, you walk on eggshells. And that's the very moment you begin betraying your authenticity in an effort to earn something that should have been freely given: respect. When someone doesn't respect you, your goal isn't to earn their respect. Your goal is to remain rooted in your value, whether they give it or not, because self-respect is not built on other people's behavior. It's built on your consistency with yourself. It's saying, even if you don't see my value, I do. And I won't lower my standards just to make you more comfortable. There will always be people who misunderstand you, people who project their own insecurities onto you, people who will treat you poorly simply because they don't have the emotional capacity to do better. And you're not responsible for changing them. You're only responsible for deciding what you will and will not allow. Releasing the need for approval is an act of emotional maturity. It allows you to show up in your relationships, not from a place of needing to be chosen, but from a place of knowing your value. You begin to walk through the world differently. You stop chasing closure. You stop performing. You stop twisting yourself into versions that might be more acceptable to someone else's standard. Here's the truth. The more you align with your self-worth, the more polarizing you may become. Some people will be drawn to your confidence, while others will be intimidated by it. But that's not your concern. Your job is to live in a way that honors who you are, not who they prefer you to be. Respect yourself so consistently that anyone who can't match that energy quietly fades into the background. The people who are meant for you will never require you to abandon yourself to keep them. So let go of needing everyone to agree with you, understand you, or approve of you. That's not freedom. That's bondage. And you've outgrown it. Because at the end of the day, your peace doesn't come from being liked. It comes from living in integrity with who you truly are. And that's where the deepest, unshakable confidence is born. At some point, we all face the sting of being disrespected, whether it's subtle or direct, intentional or careless. And while we can't always control how people treat us, we can control how we respond. That response is where your power lives. The truth is, respect begins with you. It starts with the way you speak to yourself, the way you protect your energy, the standards you enforce, and the spaces you choose to stay in or walk away from. You don't demand respect with loud declarations. You command it through quiet consistency, through how you carry yourself and what you choose to allow. You don't have to tolerate poor treatment just to keep the peace. You don't have to prove your worth to someone who has already chosen to ignore it. And you certainly don't need to lose yourself trying to win people over who were never meant to hold space in your life. Instead, let your growth speak. Let your distance speak. Let your standards speak. This isn't about bitterness. It's about clarity. You are not cold for drawing a line. You are not selfish for protecting your peace. You are not wrong for choosing to evolve past the noise and chaos of people who can't meet you with the respect you deserve. That is strength. That is growth. The more you step into your self-worth, the less you will tolerate anything less than mutual effort, kindness, and respect. And here's the beautiful part. When you stop entertaining disrespect, your world makes room for better people, better love, and better peace. People who see you. People who match your energy. People who make you feel safe in your standards, not punished for having them. So let this be your reminder. You don't have to fight to be valued. You just have to stop settling for places where your value is questioned. Walk with grace. Enforce your boundaries. Keep growing, keep rising. And the right people, the ones who truly see and respect you, will meet you there.